So I'm pretty stoked today. It's upper body volume. Going to be playing with the earthquake bar as a primary lift. This is new. This is not something I usually do. So time to weeble, wobble, and hopefully not fall down. Started off the foundation of volume here with 169 pounds for 5 sets of 10. I can confirm that the pump was more than adequate. I can also confirm that this was very wobbly the entire way through. This bar is deceptively challenging and relatively uncomfortable, but I managed to clear the volume accordingly. So onwards and upwards we will go in the consequent weeks to follow. As soon as I was cleared 5 sets of 10 on the earthquake bar bench press, I transitioned over to some supinated close grip pull downs using that thick grip handle, thicker diameter on that handle there. A lot of people reach out and want to know how my forearms have become so developed. Well, it's utilizing secondary exercises like this and never employing any training implements to bypass grip, excluding top end sets of deadlifts. As soon as I was done with the pull downs, I moved into some upright barbell rows, higher rep range, lower weight than I might usually. I like to rotate the intensity accordingly in consideration of load and relative volume. We got to build those traps. So traps are the new abs. I'm telling you, this is the reality. So we had to get some of that direct trap work in. Then went into a 5 rep max on the skull crusher. As some of you know, I like hitting big weights on unorthodox exercise variations. 124 pounds for a top end set of 5 with 3 back off sets to follow. Skull crushers are one of my favorite unorthodox exercises to move big weight on. I really want to get a 2-plate skull crusher. That I think would be pretty impressive. From there, finished off this upper body training session with 5 rounds on the ropes. I don't often incorporate the ropes into my training, just on the odd occasion when I want to contribute to the more than adequate pump and get a little bit more forearm work and some general conditioning in. 5 sets of 15 seconds with 15-second breaks in between, and that was a wrap on Tuesday's training session. Solid. So today should be a pretty interesting workout because I'll be working on the SSB to an 18-inch box, and I've never done box squats before. So starting with a higher box because I really don't have much of an idea of what I'm doing. And we'll see how things go. Hopefully we can get a little bit of weight on the bar. What I'll do today is kind of work up to a conservative single, see how I feel. I'm confident enough with the SSB squat that I can play with the numbers relatively safely, assuming I don't get stuck on the box. And then from there we'll calculate out for the remainder of these 16 weeks and see what sort of progress we can make. So the box squats felt good. Ran through a bunch of singles ranging from 300 pounds all the way up to what you'll soon see as my top end single. And I basically judged that off of when I felt uncomfortable. I jumped up in about 20-pound increments per set until I felt the rep started to slow down. And the moment it started to slow down, I said, you know what? We're going to leave it there. No point trying to snap anything up. So we topped out at 405 pounds for a top end single, and I'll use that to base my calculations off moving forward. Continued forward with some barbell split squats, working in the lower rep ranges with moderate loads. I wouldn't consider them heavy, but we are running a linear progression on these, trying to build up the split squat strength. Balance is a huge factor here, and I struggle with it. And then finished off the workout with some strict glute ham raises. 2.5 pounds for sets of 10. Let me tell you, my glutes, hamstrings, and lower back were trashed after this lower body training session. Those GHRs are horrid, even with light loads. Deceptively brutal. Saturday morning, got a big upper body day today. We're going to be on the incline bench, and this is the start of a new training block, so we're going to be in a higher rep range, which is kind of nice because I barely squeezed out that 282 single at the latter end of the last training block. So like I said, in one of the videos I had posted regarding the exercise selection for this block moving forward, I'm hoping to squeeze out a few more progressions on this incline before I have to scrap it and set it to the side temporarily. So let's see what we can do. So I did manage to clear this top end set on the incline, 225 for a set of 8 repetitions. It's always encouraging when you start off a new training block that's running an exercise that was on the line last block, and you still clear a progression regardless of how small it might be. Ran 2 back off sets as well to really focus on getting that volume in. But the nice thing here is that changing up the rep ranges is going to allow me to apply just a varied enough stress to continue to move the incline bench along. Went from the incline benches into some pronated barbell rows, not a traditional variation that I employ. I'm a big fan of them, but I just don't incorporate them all that often because there's so many variations for the back that I can incorporate. So started off light because I never do them, 95 pounds for sets of 20. I'm more likely to do pendulate rows, which I can move well in excess of 200 pounds on. So I started off a little bit lighter, erred on the side of conservatism here, considering that this bar is not going to be touching the ground and there's not a lot of body English in consideration of momentum that I will be utilizing as compared to a pendulate row. Then went into some shoulder accessory work, not very typical of me either. 5 pounds on the front raise, side raise, and bent over rear laterals. Sets of 25, short rest periods. Let me tell you, my shoulders were dead. These 5-pound plates felt so heavy by the third round. Then I threw in some earthquake bar skull crushers, more for my own personal entertainment. I wasn't entirely sure how these were going to go, but I wanted to take them for a spin. They were incredibly awkward, weebly, wobbly, as I often mention with the earthquake bar. Definitely felt them in the triceps, though, even with a lighter load as was employed here. I'll be continuing to incorporate them in the future as I can confirm that they were more than effective. So, another variation to add to my bag of tricks. Finished off this upper body training session with some fat grip work. Got the thick grips on the barbell and did some barbell curls. You might be noticing that from time to time, I roll out the thick bar options, the thick diameter bar variations. As I mentioned earlier in the video, that does contribute to the forearm development that so many individuals ask about, but it's also the crushing power that is going to be developed in the hands that carries over to your individual capacity to handle those larger loads with relative ease, because grip strength, which is often overlooked and undervalued, is often the limiting factor for people in the weight room on the bar. Sunday morning, first lower body day of this new block where I've got sumo deadlifts, so this will be interesting. We'll see how this is going to go with it programmed. Hopefully we get off to a good start. We got some heavy front squats today too. Actually, they're not that heavy. There's just a lot of reps relative to the weight, so let's get it on. Started off this lower body training session with the top end set of front squats, 275 pounds for 8 repetitions. You know what I dislike most about high rep compound work is A, central nervous system fatigue, B, muscular fatigue, C, I usually end up out of breath. 3 contributing factors that make me incredibly uncomfortable. I am not a huge fan of this reality. Backed off the 275 to 247.5 and took it for 2 rounds of 8 reps as well. And by the third set, I was ready to take a nap. But I didn't take a nap because I had to work on sumo deadlifts. And I think I may have overshot the aim with the sumo deadlifts out of the gates. Not because the weight is difficult for me to move. I was able to move the weight, but I am already seeing a little bit of form breakdown. But I'm not entirely sure if the form breakdown is because I've started off too heavy or because I just need more time getting in the groove. That will be determined moving forward, and I will assess as I go. Although my form was not impeccable, it did not break down to the point where I was worried, just a little bit disappointed overall. So we'll continue to work on this and see how things go. The sumo deadlift is new, and I have to make sure that I grease the groove accordingly, that I dial in that form off the jump in order to benefit from this maximally. As soon as I was done with the sumo deadlifts, I transitioned into some reverse hyper work to finish off, as is usually the case on my second lower body day of the week, whether it's high reps or low reps. And I cleared quite a bit of volume on the reverse hyper, working on developing that posterior chain. All in all, I would say that this was a solid training week. I felt confident across the board, a lot of variation being employed, some progressions on old accessory work, which was encouraging, as well as some progressions on some lifts that have been present for a little while. New is refreshing, progress is encouraging, and that is a wrap on the week.